His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa ratified and issued Law 14 of 2026, approving the framework agreement on contributing to the financing of second phase of the Sheikh Jabal Al Ahmed Al Suba Highway development project between the Government of Bahrain and the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development, following approval by the Shura and Representatives Councils. The law ratifies the framework agreement, which covers the terms, scope and mechanisms of funding for the project, as agreed by both parties. The General Command of the Bahrain Defence Force announced that through the unwavering vigilance of its personnel, the BDF's air defence systems continue to counter successive waves of the hostile Iranian aggression. Since the onset of hostilities, our defences have intercepted and destroyed 194 ballistic missiles and 508 drones targeting Bahrain. The General Command expressed pride in the exceptional combat readiness and vigilance demonstrated by BDF personnel and praised the sustained operational effectiveness in defending Bahrain, which continues to inspire confidence that the Kingdom's skies remain secure. It urged all members of the public to exercise the utmost caution for their personal safety and advised them to keep clear of affected areas and any suspicious objects, refrain from filming or photographing military operations or debris sites, avoid spreading unverified information, and consult only official and government media channels for updates, alerts and advisories. The General Command further emphasised that the use of ballistic missiles and drones to target civilian areas and private property constitutes a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law and the UN Charter, as these indiscriminate attacks represent a direct threat to regional peace and security.
إن الجميع لا يفخر بما يظهره رجال البحرين في كافة الأجهزة العسكرية والأمنية. ربي اجعل هذا البلد آمنا.
The Minister of Interior, General Sheikh Rashid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, paid a visit to the National Ambulance Operations Centre and the General Directorate of Media and Security Culture as part of efforts to monitor readiness and preparedness to address the repercussions of Iran's hostilities, thereby contributing to the development of operational mechanisms to respond to emergency situations. The Minister conveyed the greetings of His Majesty the King, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, a Deputy Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Prime Minister, to the personnel of the National Ambulance Centre and security media for their efforts in dealing with the repercussions of the hostile Iranian aggression against citizens, residents, infrastructure and civilian targets. He reviewed the level of operational readiness across all centres and reinforcement of medical teams and ambulance fleets and increased coordination with relevant authorities to ensure rapid response to all emergency reports. The National Ambulance Service provided emergency services to numerous injured individuals at accident sites and shelters, which included the deployment of more than 176 ambulances as part of the emergency plan to handle reports. The Minister praised the National Ambulance Service's role in reducing response times to reach emergency cases and transport them to hospitals as a matter of community appreciation that reflects the high level of preparedness, adding that the ambulance's personnel exemplary conduct reflects their commitment to the national duty and their high level of skilled and field efficiency in handling various incidents in coordination with the General Directorate of Civil Defence. The Minister of Interior, General Sheikh Rashid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, said during his visit that Bahrain demonstrated readiness in its first real-world test, shifting from routine to operational state within hours and effectively countering the repercussions of Iranian aggression. The government, guided by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, worked as a united team with integrated agencies to address the aggression's repercussions. The Ministry played a key role in stabilising society, ensuring rapid communication with citizens and residents, and achieving effective public engagement. The Minister said that security media is central to all work, reflecting efforts across ministries. Media coverage is crucial and the readiness is a source of national pride. Field security media received commendations for delivering a disciplined, credible, accurate, fast and clear message. He added that security media supported frontline personnel morale and informed them of the leadership's support for national cadres and patriotic dedication. It also helped to reassure citizens and residents by clarifying government efforts and measures to mitigate aggression, strengthening confidence in the government plans and procedures. The General Directorate's efforts were highlighted in increasing security awareness, as in 354 media materials were broadcast via international channels, 1,858 news items or publications issued, and social media viewership exceeded 128 million, ensuring direct public dissemination of events, instructions and safety guidelines within a framework of community partnership. The Minister emphasised the duty to protect national achievements with steadfastness, discipline, dedication and resolve, thanking police officers and praying for Bahrain's continued security and stability. The Director General of the General Directorate of Security Media, Major General Mohammed bin Dana, expressed gratitude for the Minister's support and guidance, noting the Minister's proactive approach to reporting events and following details to ensure an effective media message for security and stability. The Minister for Foreign Affairs and President of the Security Council for the current session, Dr. Abdulatif bin Rashid Al Ziani, chaired the meeting convened to vote on the draft resolution submitted by Bahrain on behalf of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait and Jordan regarding freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. At the beginning of the session, Dr. Al Ziani delivered a statement in which he noted that the draft represents a decisive and responsible response to dangerous developments affecting one of the most vital waterways for international trade, namely the Strait of Hormuz.
Excellencies, may the peace, mercy and blessings of God be upon you. The Kingdom of Bahrain, acting on behalf of the United Arab Emirates, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the State of Qatar, the State of Kuwait, and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, hereby submits the draft resolution presented before the Security Council today. This resolution addresses the security of maritime navigation in the Arabian Gulf, constituting a decisive and responsible response to grave developments affecting one of the most vital waterways for international trade, namely the Strait of Hormuz. The international significance of the Strait of Hormuz lies in the fact that it serves as a transit route for approximately 38% of global crude oil trade, 29% of liquefied petroleum gas, 19% of liquefied natural gas, and 20% of refined petroleum products, including high sulfur oil, which constitutes an essential component in the production of fertilizers upon which developing nations heavily rely, particularly during agricultural seasons. Furthermore, the Straits facilitates the passage of about 30% of the world's helium supplies, a vital element in the electronic chip manufacturing industry, as well as foodstuffs and pharmaceuticals essential to the lives of millions of people. Consequently, any disruption to the flow of these resources does not merely impact energy markets. Its effects extend to agricultural supply chains and global food security, as well as to vital sectors dependent on advanced technology. The member states of the Gulf Cooperation Council represent the primary source of global energy supplies. This renders the security of the Strait of Hormuz a shared international responsibility, one that transcends the regional sphere to directly bear upon the stability of the global economy. Therefore, we declare loudly and unequivocally before this council, which is charged with the maintenance of international peace and security, that the Islamic Republic of Iran has no right to close this waterway to international navigation, nor to deprive the peoples of the world of these resources essential for life. In doing so, it violates international law, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and fundamental ethical and humanitarian principles. Should your esteemed Council permit the strait to remain closed today, such a scenario would inevitably be replicated in other straits and waterways, thereby transforming the world into a jungle where force, arrogance, and hegemony prevail, and where international laws are utterly disregarded. The draft resolution currently before the Council comes at a moment of extreme criticality and sensitivity as Iran persists in its unlawful aggression against our nations, employing thousands of ballistic missiles and drones, targeting civilian infrastructure and vital installations, as well as the security of navigation. This constitutes a flagrant violation of the United Nations Charter and international law, especially international humanitarian law. This is also a direct threat to regional and international peace and security, and an explicit violation of Security Council Resolution 2817, which was adopted just 30 days ago. It is also a violation of Human Rights Council Resolution L38, adopted 2 weeks ago. The Islamic Republic of Iran's disregard for international resolutions and its insistence on threatening the security of international navigation is neither a sudden emergency nor a spur-of-the-moment occurrence. Rather, it is part of a well-documented pattern of negative conduct. Indeed, the Security Council has previously addressed threats to security of navigation in the Arabian Gulf, unequivocally condemning them in Resolution 552 of 1984. Furthermore, the international community remains acutely aware of Iran's recurring pattern of resorting to economic blockades and threats regarding the closure and disruption of the Strait of Hormuz, rather than opting for diplomatic relations founded upon prioritizing mutual interests, reciprocal cooperation, and the principles of good neighborliness. The region has witnessed similar precedents in 2011, 2012, and 2019 through the targeting of oil tankers and repeated statements regarding the use of the Strait of Hormuz as a political and economic bargaining chip. The draft resolution before you does not create a new reality. It rather constitutes a serious response to a pattern of recurring hostile Iranian behavior that must cease, and serves as an implementation of paragraph 6 of Resolution 552. 42 years after the adoption of Resolution 552, we urge the international community today, and this esteemed Council specifically, to take a firm, serious, and resolute position against irresponsible practices that attempt, to no avail, to impose a unilateral economic encirclement upon the nations and peoples of the world. These practices and acts of aggression have transcended their regional impact, directly affecting the stability of the global economy and international food security. The World Food Programme has warned that the closure of the strait has driven up the costs of fuel, transport, and food. Furthermore, a continued closure of the strait could push nearly 45 million additional people into acute levels of food insecurity. A situation that demands urgent and responsible international action. Excellencies, in light of the global turbulence witnessed today, it is no longer possible to ignore the fact that the obstruction of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz represents a systematic pattern of behavior, one predicated on weaponizing this vital waterway as a tool for political pressure and leverage. Let us be clear. A failure to act today would entail grave consequences for the world and for humanity. It would embolden further violations of international law, undermine the credibility of the Security Council, and send a negative message, namely that Security Council resolutions may be disregarded with impunity. The economic and humanitarian crisis confronting us today poses a fundamental question to the Security Council and the international community. Will the international community accept being held hostage to attempts at economic blackmail, regardless of the perpetrator? Will your esteemed Council shoulder its responsibility to confront these blatant aggressions, which are actions that contravene international law, show no respect for its resolutions, and indeed completely disregard them? The adoption of this resolution by your esteemed Council today will send a strong and unified message on the other hand, a message that we stand united in upholding international law, that we will protect civilians, global trade, and food security, that we will safeguard the vital supply chains for advanced technology, thereby ensuring continued global technological progress for the well-being of humanity, and that we will not permit the vital international waterways are threatened or blocked. Excellencies, the Kingdom of Bahrain's non-permanent membership in the Security Council, coupled with our presidency of the Council during this current month of April, has placed us before a challenge of the utmost sensitivity, namely, to protect the interests of our affected nations and of the entire world, while simultaneously preserving the unity of the Security Council, ensuring that the Council remains united in its stances and resolutions. Consequently, and following continuous negotiations and extensive discussions, we have strived to ensure that this draft resolution is balanced, implementable, and capable of achieving the desired objectives. A united Council to ensure safe maritime navigation. We therefore urge all members of the Security Council to support this draft resolution for the Council's credibility, the security and stability of our region, the growth of the global economy, the preservation of food security and technological advancement. All depend upon the decision of your esteemed Council. Thank you.
I resume my function as President of the Council. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document 2026/273 please raise their hand. Those against? Abstentions? The results. The result of the voting is as follows: 11 votes in favor, 2 votes against, 2 abstentions. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Bahrain. أصحاب السعادة.
Your Excellencies, my country, the Kingdom of Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the State of Qatar, the State of Kuwait, and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan express their regret that the resolution presented before you today has not been adopted. The Council failed to shoulder its responsibility in relation to an illegal conduct that requires decisive action with no delay. We had hoped that the draft resolution would present a step towards a permanent solution that will ensure freedom of navigational freedom in the Strait of Hormuz as an international waterway that no country has the right to obstruct navigation in it according to international law. In this connection, we reiterate that the voice of international community, as represented in this Council and its resolution 2718 of 2026, which expressed the imposition of obligations that should be implemented with no delay. Any inaction in this regard will undermine the credibility of the Council and emboldens to commit more violations. Accordingly, we call on the Islamic Republic of Iran to fully comply to these obligations and to constructively cooperate with the international community instead of continue to adopt policies of escalation and to employ ballistic missiles and launch drones against neighboring countries. The attacks that your Council has called for their stop and end, and we call on Iran to stop its attempts to create a reality that is based on threat, economic pressure by obstructing navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, as this will have consequences on energy security, medicine, food supplies, international trade in the world at large. Your Excellencies, threats to navigational freedom and regional security are not subject to statute of limitation. These challenges are persistent, which require collective action and decisive action. Accordingly, we stress that our countries will continue to work in coordination with their partners and allies to ensure the navigational freedom and the protection of international maritime waterways, to prevent the recurrence of these threats, to ensure security of international economy and maintain interests of international community. The draft resolution, which has not been adopted by your esteemed Council, reflects an urgent response to serious developments which created a direct threat to freedom of maritime navigation and impacted the safety and stability of international trade, energy markets, and food and medicine supplies. The draft has also aimed to consolidate principles of international law in relation to navigational freedom and ensure that waterways are not used as bargaining ships or tools of blackmailing. Failing to adopt this resolution sends the wrong signal to the peoples of the world, the signal that the threat to international waterways can pass without any decisive action by the international organization responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. Threat to close the Strait of Hormuz and using it as a pressure card before the world is not anything new. It is a repeated conduct used by Iran for decades. Every time it has been used, it had direct implications on global markets, energy security, and food supplies, and the lives of the peoples of the region. We consider that the inaction of the Council and its failing to address this situation decisively will lead to entrench this kind of conduct and behavior that is irresponsible and that is contravening with international law. It will expand the scope of its risks, which is a threat to the stability of the world order. The Arab Gulf is not far from your countries, not in geography or economy. It is in the heart of your stability and prosperity. Its security is your security. And the Gulf countries are not only providing the energy supplies which move world economy, they contribute to the stability of the markets, and they support the supply chains, and they are a reliable investment and commercial partner, in particular the developing countries and countries of the South, which find themselves in the front line of those impacted by this crisis. And they bear the disproportionate cost of any disruption in supply chains and disruption of energy markets. Our countries contribute to the development of future industries, including the supply chains and the associated technologies. We host communities of qualified people from all over the world. Your people are working side by side with ours in an environment based on security, dignity, equal opportunity, and aspired and shared future. Your Excellencies, failing to adopt the resolution today does not change the reality on the ground. It does not protect the civilian seafarers. It does not secure global supply chains. It does not ensure the free flow of energy and trade. It does not exempt those responsible for the violations of international law from accountability. It raises questions about the ability of this Council to assume its responsibility in maintaining international peace and security. Let us be clear. The attacks by Iran against the commercial vessels and its attempts to hinder the legitimate passage through the Strait of Hormuz is a flagrant violation to international law and the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. It is a direct threat to international peace and security. Failing to adopt this resolution does not give legitimacy to these actions, which adversely impact the interests of the peoples and states of the world. It does not weaken the existing legal obligations. It does not reduce or impair the right of states to take all necessary means to defend individually and collectively their sovereignty, security, stability, and interests, and the interests of the peoples and states of the region consistent with Article 51 of the Charter as enshrined in your Resolution 2817. Your Excellencies, the Kingdom of Bahrain regrets that the Council has not lived up to the moment to act in a unified manner as imposed by its legal responsibilities. Notwithstanding the response and the cooperation we have extended in relation to the amendments required by some states to be included in the draft resolution. This comes from our interest in maintaining unity of the Council. We reiterate we will continue to work with our regional and international partners to ensure maritime freedom and navigational freedom, and to protect civilian lives, and to work with esteemed Council to compel Iran to implement immediately Resolution 2817. The credibility of the Council is today at stake. It's not an abstract concept. The credibility is measured by the ability of the Council to move decisively when the situation so requires. As to the responsibility, it remains to exist, and the Kingdom of Bahrain will continue to shoulder this responsibility alongside all those who uphold international law and those who believe in justice and the right of peoples to live in dignity and equality without fear from the future. Thank you.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Abdulatif Al-Siani, received a telephone call from his Portuguese counterpart, Paulo Rangel. Rangel expressed his country's appreciation for the active role undertaken by Bahrain through its non-permanent membership of the UN Security Council, as well as for its constructive efforts and contributions in support of international peace and security and the strengthening of multilateral action. He also commended Bahrain's initiative in submitting a draft resolution to the Council on securing maritime navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, noting that it reflects Bahrain's commitment to playing an active role within the Council in a manner that safeguards the interests of countries worldwide, as well as energy and food security, while reinforcing international efforts to enhance regional security and stability and address current challenges. The call reviewed the close relationship of friendship between the two countries and explored ways to further develop and expand cooperation across various fields, alongside an exchange of views on a number of regional and international issues of mutual interest. The Representatives' Council held the weekly session chaired by its Speaker Ahmed Al-Musalem. The Council discussed a number of draft laws, including one regarding the ratification of the agreement between the Government of the Kingdom of Bahrain and the Government of Jersey on the elimination of double taxation with respect to taxes and income and the prevention of tax evasion and avoidance, regarding the amendment of Article 144 of the Social Insurance Law. The Council decided to take a final vote on the draft laws on an urgent basis, approve them in their entirety and refer them to the Shura Council. The Council also discussed 3 draft laws and decided to approve them and refer them to the Government. The Council further agreed to include 6 recommendations on an urgent basis on the agenda under the item New Business and decided to approve them and refer them to the Government. The Ministry of Industry and Commerce continues to intensify its monitoring efforts to follow up on market conditions and the availability of basic commodities in order to ensure the smooth flow and stability of trade in light of current developments.
The Ministry of Industry and Commerce continues monitoring market conditions, supply chains, and the readiness of national facilities to meet local demand for essential commodities, while supporting the food security system to ensure smooth trade amid ongoing developments. Local markets show availability of various consumer goods with appropriate price levels, reflecting strong supply chains and effective market oversight. The private sector plays a vital role in supporting the local market and strengthening the national economy, highlighting the integrated public-private sector's efforts. The Ministry's inspection teams actively monitor market activity to prevent practices harmful to consumer interests, as it will take necessary legal measures against violations, including preventing, withholding, or refusing to offer goods, and addressing attempts to manipulate prices or exploit circumstances. Consumer awareness is essential to supporting food security, as responsible consumption by citizens and residents boosts purchasing activity and ensures continued availability of essential goods. The Ministry remains committed under all circumstances to strengthening stability in sectors under supervision to achieve economic security and serve the Kingdom and its people.
Bahrain strongly condemned and denounced the reprehensible Iranian attacks targeting energy facilities, petrochemical installations and critical infrastructure in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, as a continuation of the pattern of hostility aimed at civilian and economic facilities in the GCC. A statement issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs considered this a dangerous escalation that threatens the security and stability of the region and a flagrant violation of the principles of good neighbourliness, the rules of international law and international humanitarian law. The Ministry reiterated Bahrain's full solidarity with Saudi Arabia and its complete support for all measures it undertakes to preserve its sovereignty, security and stability. It also renewed its call on the international community to take firm measures to stop these hostile and unjustified Iranian attacks, targeting the countries of the region and their peaceful peoples, in line with UN Security Council Resolution 2817 and UN Human Rights Council Resolution 3861, in a manner that contributes to securing global energy supplies, protecting vital facilities, and strengthening regional and international peace and security. Bahrain strongly condemned and denounced the acts of storming and vandalism that targeted the Consulate General of Kuwait in the city of Basra in Iraq and the accompanying blatant violations of the sanctity of their consular mission. A statement issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs stressed that these acts constitute a flagrant breach of all international laws and norms, as well as a serious violation of the provisions of the 1963 Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs reaffirmed Bahrain's full solidarity with Kuwait and its complete support for all measures it undertakes to protect its missions and interests. It further stressed the need to safeguard diplomatic and consular premises and their personnel, in accordance with international conventions and charters, and called for immediate and decisive measures to hold all those involved in these criminal acts accountable and to ensure that such incidents are not repeated in a manner that contributes to strengthening security and stability, preserving diplomatic relations and upholding the principles of international law. The ambassadors of GCC states and Jordan to Malaysia, headed by the ambassador of Bahrain to Kuala Lumpur, Dr. Walid Al-Manai, met with Deputy Secretary General for Bilateral Affairs at the Malaysian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ahmed Rozia bin Abdullah Ghani, to discuss developments related to the Iranian attacks. The ambassador expressed gratitude to the Malaysian side for the ongoing bilateral cooperation, noting that this initiative comes as Bahrain assumes the presidency of the current session of the GCC, in addition to its current presidency of the UN Security Council for the month of April. He praised Malaysia's support for Security Council Resolution 2817, submitted by Bahrain, which condemned Iranian hostilities on GCC states and Jordan. He expressed the appreciation of the assembled nations for Malaysia's stance, particularly its support for this resolution, adopted on March 11, 2026, which embodied an international consensus of 136 countries condemning the attacks and protecting regional stability. The ambassador also referred to the draft resolution submitted by Bahrain to the UN Human Rights Council on March the 25th, which addressed the humanitarian consequences of the war waged by Iran against the GCC states and Jordan. He emphasised that the resolution stresses the protection of civilians and accountability of those responsible for human rights violations. The ambassador pointed to the repercussions of the Iranian hostilities on international security, energy markets and the safety of navigation, while seeking to enhance diplomatic coordination with the Malaysian side to promote de-escalation and adherence to international law, stressing the direct negative effects of the war on the global economy and energy prices, effects that directly affect Malaysia and the ASEAN countries. Belgium Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Chief of Staff Hubert Roesen received Bahrain Ambassador to Belgium and head of its mission to the EU and NATO, Ambassador Dr. Mohammed Ali Bazad. The meeting addressed current regional developments following the Iranian attacks in the Kingdom of Bahrain and the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC states. The ambassador stressed that GCC states are not party to the conflict, calling for misleading narratives in this regard to be firmly rebutted. He further emphasised that Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz constitutes a threat to the global economy, with implications extending to Europe and the wider world. Roesen expressed Belgium's solidarity with Bahrain and the GCC in light of these developments, conveying the Foreign Affairs Minister's repeated condemnation of the Iranian attacks on civilian infrastructure and violations of the sovereignty of GCC states. He also reaffirmed Belgium's commitment to supporting the security of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. The meeting also reviewed avenues for strengthening bilateral cooperation in areas of mutual interest, while reaffirming a shared commitment to advancing Bahraini-Belgian relations within a structured institutional framework. The Civil Aviation Affairs at the Ministry of Transportation and Telecommunications has announced the reopening of airspace over Bahrain, following a temporary closure that was implemented as a precautionary measure in light of recent developments in the region. Civil Aviation Affairs emphasised its commitment to ensuring the smooth operation of air traffic in accordance with the highest safety and security standards, in continuous coordination with the relevant authorities to safeguard the safety of aviation and travellers. During its chairmanship of the Security Council session, dedicated to voting on a draft resolution concerning freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, Bahrain warned of the dangers of closing the strait and its repercussions on global economic stability, energy security and international supplies. More in this report.
During its chairmanship of the UN Security Council session focused on a draft resolution regarding the freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, Bahrain, representing the GCC and Jordan, emphasized the critical need for international action to ensure navigational security in this vital maritime corridor. The resolution underscored the significant risks associated with potential closure of the strait, which is acknowledged as one of the world's key maritime routes, playing a pivotal role in maintaining global economic stability and energy security. Bahrain provided data highlighting the implications of closing the Strait of Hormuz, This strategic strait is responsible for the transit of approximately 38% of the global crude oil trade, 29% of liquefied petroleum gas, 19% of liquefied natural gas, and around 20% of refined petroleum products. Such statistics illustrate its status as an essential choke point on the global supply chain, suggesting that any disruption to these energy flows could adversely impact energy markets and reverberate through various sectors, including agriculture, food security, advanced technology, and modern industries, potentially destabilizing the entire global economy. Bahrain cited warnings from the World Food Programme regarding the impact of a closure on food costs, fuel prices, and transportation, estimating that if the situation persists, an additional 45 million people could face acute food insecurity worldwide. Bahrain firmly stated that Iran has no legitimate authority to impede international navigation through this waterway, noting that such actions would violate both international law and the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, alongside humanitarian principles that underpin state relations. Bahrain highlighted concerns that a continued blockage of the strait could establish a troubling precedent for the international community, as similar disruptions could occur in other critical waterways globally. This potential shift could lead to an international system marked by dominance and arrogance, contrasting sharply with the principles of law and mutual respect that govern global navigation and trade.
Dear citizens and residents, when hearing the first warning sirens while driving, kindly do the following. Continue driving and clear the left lane to open the way for emergency vehicles, civil defense, ambulances, traffic, security patrols to perform their duties. Listen to official media channels. Seek shelter in the nearest building or take cover in non-exposed areas until the danger has passed. Dear citizens and residents, if you're at home or at work, kindly do the following. Be calm, don't go out except for essentials, and as per instructions and guidelines issued by competent authorities. When you hear the second warning siren when the danger ends and situations are back to normal, the following procedures should be considered. Do not gather near affected areas for your safety and avoid hindering civil defense saving lives operations. Do not pick up objects thrown on the ground even if they are familiar to you.